Good morning, everybody. It is an honor. Maybe see if somebody can run over Akash and see if they'll stop cutting for a minute. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here this morning to welcome and MC this event to celebrate the progress that Connecticut has continued to make in pushing for common sense gun laws. Connecticut has long been a leader when it comes to gun safety and common sense gun laws, and under Governor Lamont's leadership and the leadership of the legislature, and in particular our Senate and House Judiciary chairs, Senator Holder Winfield and Representative Staffstrom, Connecticut has continued to make tremendous progress and lead the way nationally. The law that was signed into law this past spring after last legislative session does so many important things. It makes it easier to enforce the ban on ghost guns and high-capacity magazines. It tightens loopholes on assault weapons. It helps to add additional protection and close the loophole on what we know as the boyfriend loophole to help protect against domestic violence. It prohibits open carry in the state of Connecticut. It includes provisions regarding safe storage for all weapons. And it also includes a provision that I was proud, along with a coalition of mayors, to advocate for and to support, which makes sure that when those individuals who are repeatedly committing acts of violence in our community, acts of gun violence specifically, we hold them accountable and we protect our community. And I'm incredibly grateful to all of the leaders who are here, in our legislature, our governor, the governor's team, all the advocates who pushed for these changes. They will make a difference in communities across our state. And I want to say it's important to say these changes make a practical difference. In the past 2 weeks alone, the Hartford Police Department has recovered 2 ghost assault weapons. They routinely take high-capacity magazines off the street, which are involved in acts of crime. The changes that are in this law will make a difference on the ground. And I'm so grateful, as mayor of this city, who has spent far too much time with the incredibly courageous mothers from Mothers United Against Violence, comforting those who have lost loved ones to gun violence, even in their own grief doing that work. We know how devastating gun violence is, and we know that we have to do everything we can to try to stop it. And because we have a governor and a legislature that are willing to step up and do that work, we're continuing to keep Connecticut in the lead. So with that, it is a tremendous honor to introduce first and foremost our Senate President, a tremendous and long-standing leader on the issue of gun safety, Senate President Martin Looney.
Thank you, Mayor Bronin. And as we all know, Mayor Bronin has done a superb job in the city of Hartford for the last 8 years, been a leader on so many issues statewide of concerned urban areas like the city of Hartford, city of New Haven, city of Bridgeport, and others. And gun violence, of course, is something that he has dealt with throughout that time, and as someone who has shown leadership as well as compassion and vision on that issue. As the mayor said, we had, I think, a very significant initiative this year regarding gun violence and gun violence prevention, with the specifics that the mayor ticked off. It has been a struggle that goes back 30 years. Earlier this year, we had a commemorative press conference recalling the 1993 assault weapons ban that passed in the Senate on a tie vote, and the tie vote was broken by then Lieutenant Governor Groark. And then, of course, 20 years later, we renewed our position of national leadership in 2013 after the terrible tragedy in Newtown with the passage of that bill, which again was a bipartisan bill. At that time, 90% of the Democrats in both chambers voted for it, and about 40% of the Republicans. So it was substantially bipartisan, but of course under Democratic leadership as usual. But it's important, I think, to recognize what we did this year and adding to that in 2023. Certainly commend the leadership of the Judiciary Committee, Representative Sastrom, Senator Winfield. But our battle is not over. There are always things that we can do to look to next year to enhance our response, to be even more protective, looking at what other states have done, although we have provided leadership to other states as well. But this is, I think, an important additional step in the wall of efforts to prevent gun violence, although the tragedy persists, as we all know. And as long as other states around us don't take the measures that we have, we will always continue to be vulnerable. But it's important for us to provide national leadership on this, and we pledge to continue to do so. And as long as Governor Lamont is proposing legislation like this, we will be happy to help push it through the General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Looney. And as I mentioned, the hard work in the legislature was led by the chairs of the Judiciary Committee. Senator Holder Winfield couldn't be here this morning, but Representative Staffstrom, Chairman Staffstrom, is here, and both Senator Winfield and Representative Staffstrom were recognized by Connecticut Against Gun Violence, which is here strongly today, just a week ago, as champions of common sense gun laws and gun safety, and they were rightly recognized because these two legislative leaders are a model of how to get stuff done. It's not easy to pass laws like this, and they put in the time for week after week, month after month, to not just make sure that the bills were well drafted, but to bring everybody together. And I experienced that firsthand. Just want to say personally how much I respect and admire the way these two chairmen do their work. Representative and Chairman Steve Staffstrom.
Thank you, Mayor, and certainly thank you for your leadership on this, and certainly for your advocacy all the way through on this bill, and obviously from the top, thank you to the Governor for originally proposing it, and certainly for making this a priority. As often happens in the legislature, we need to look at sort of what our priorities for a particular session. And I think there were very few bills that took higher priority this year in either chamber, and certainly for the Governor, than getting sensible gun reforms passed through the legislature this year. Connecticut is one of the 3 or 4 safest states in the entire nation. We've seen our violent crime rate fall precipitously over particularly the last 10, 12, 15 years under Democratic governors. And we've done that in a number of ways, first by being smart on crime, but also by tightening our gun regulations. If you look at the violent crime rates of states like Connecticut that have stricter gun laws, as opposed to those states, particularly down south, that have very weak gun laws, our crime rates are significantly lower. It is a direct correlation. The bill we passed and that takes effect this weekend will make Connecticut a safer state, will continue to help cut crime, particularly in our urban areas. And so I'm thrilled to be able to stand here with advocates, with my fellow lawmakers, in order to highlight this passage, because the actions we took will continue to make Connecticut a safer place to live.
Representative, now I'd like to ask Deb Davis from Mothers United Against Violence to come up, and want to acknowledge both Ms. Beckman and Reverend Brown as well. Mothers United Against Violence is a group that no one wants to be a part of. These are mothers who have lost children, lost loved ones, and who dedicate themselves to helping other families grieve and to try to break the cycle of violence by doing that work. And it's hard to imagine anything more courageous. Deb Davis, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of Mothers United Against Violence, Reverend Brown, Mrs. Beckman, and all of the team members throughout the city, and the various parts of the state as well, as we have created partners so that this work is not just isolated to one particular area, because gun violence is everywhere. Although we focus on our core areas where we can really help to provide some help on the retaliation side, help on making sure that we can help with the prevention, that's really important. But we have to make sure that we are engaging those families as well. A law is not as strong as the community that actually helps to enforce it. And that's going to be important, because the police can do what they can do, but Mothers United Against Violence has been on the front line for 20 years. We can't sit in our offices. We can't sit back and continue to briefly write down descriptions of what we want. We have to be directly engaged with these families, and this is what we do. So we believe that the partnership that we've established with the governor, the mayors, and all of our folks throughout the state that really want to enforce gun laws that really work, we know that that will make a difference. Because if we do our part, then they can do their part as well. And so we congratulate the governor and our senators and everyone that has been so impactful. And our mayor for the city of Hartford has been so impactful in getting this done. We are excited about the fact that we can help mothers and family members not grieve a second or a third time. And that's important for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. And now I'm going to turn the MC responsibilities over to Jeremy Stein, who is the leader of Connecticut Against Gun Violence. But I want to do that with a thanks to everybody who is a part of the Connecticut Against Gun Violence team, but also thanks to all of the organizations that have been out there advocating here in Connecticut and around the country for continued progress toward safer gun laws and gun safety. Since I know that Jeremy's going to introduce some younger leaders of Connecticut gun violence to introduce the governor. Governor, I just want to say none of this would have happened if you had not made this a priority, if you had not pushed it, if your team had not been actively engaged all the way through and you had not been actively engaged. And on behalf of this community, I just want to say thank you for your leadership and for the significant progress that came about as a result of that leadership. Jeremy Stein.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to start by thanking, of course, the governor, Senator Looney, Mayor Bronin, Steve Stasham, for the tremendous work and hard work and leadership, and it is hard work, on all of these issues. But I also want to thank a couple of folks that aren't here, Senator Gary Winfield, Amy Jones, Tara Donnelly, and Joanna Tesnowski, who is standing over there, who should come up and join us, and the fabulous and heroic moms of Moms Demand Action, for all of the work that they've done, and all these people who have literally stayed awake with us up until such hours as 4:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning after a 7.5-hour debate in the Senate when the gun bill finally passed. That's the kind of work that our volunteers and the advocates do to get this kind of job done. So last Friday, I had the incredible honor to be present at the White House ceremony in D.C. when President Biden announced the creation of the first ever National Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And in this Rose Garden were hundreds of survivors of gun violence, including several survivors of Sandy Hook. Mike and Kristen Song were there, who had lost their son Ethan. And every year I go to these events, more and more people are at these events who have lost children, husbands, daughters, mothers and fathers to gun violence. And I spoke to this one couple who had told me that they were from Uvalde and that they had lost their child at this mass shooting. And another woman came up to me, and she said she was also from Texas, and said, I said, "Oh, are you from Uvalde?" And she said, no, actually, I'm from El Paso, the other mass shooting." This is where we are in this country, where it is hard to even know which brand of tragedy people are experiencing in their own states and cities and towns, and we have to do more. And I am proud to say in Connecticut that we have led the nation in doing more about gun violence, and thanks to all of the people behind me and the incredible efforts of also organizations like Mothers United Against Violence, we are doing as much as we can to end gun violence, but there, of course, is more to do. In 2023, so far, our country has experienced more than 500 mass shootings and well over 30,000 deaths due to gun violence. And the president acted and created this office, and the president spoke of hope. And there was hope. And the truth is that Connecticut is light years ahead of the rest of the country. And that Office of Violence Prevention, would not be possible if not for the tremendous work that Connecticut has accomplished over the many years of 20 to 30 years. We have led the way on gun policies that save lives, and our laws, there is no question, saves lives. We have some of the strongest gun laws, as Representative Stasham mentioned, and some of the lowest gun death rate. But we need to keep working. Why? Because on August 22nd, more than 40 shots were fired at a deli on Park Avenue, injuring 3 people, including 2 bystanders. A man in his 20s was found with gunshot wounds at a gas station in Hartford earlier Friday morning. And in New Haven, they responded to a double domestic homicide. Both man and woman were lying on the ground when officers responded. And probably the most troubling thing I've heard over the last couple of weeks was a 6-year-old shot himself after finding an unsecured gun. And that's why in Connecticut, starting October 1st, we will have one of the strictest safe storage laws in this country, requiring all gun owners to lock up their guns regardless of who's in the house. And this is necessary because it is time to make sure that irresponsible gun owners are held accountable. This will not only reduce child access to firearms, but accidental death, suicide, domestic violence, and theft of firearms, which we know has a dramatic effect on reducing community gun violence in our cities. I'm also proud to say that the state budget included an unprecedented 2-year appropriation of about $8 million to the Department of Public Health to fund community gun violence intervention programs overseen by the Commission on Community Gun Violence Intervention and Prevention. And this funding is probably one of the most important aspects of what we did this past year to make sure that organizations that are boots on the ground are getting the necessary funding to do the work they need to do in these communities. And beyond this DPH funding, there's another $23 million over the next 2 years, and I want to thank Tony Walker and Kathy Austin for their incredible leadership on this issue. And yes, Mr. President, there is hope, because here in Connecticut, we take gun violence seriously. And I was recently asked by a reporter, like, what's next? We've done so much. You know, are you going to take a break from gun violence bills? Are you going to take a break for a while? And the answer is absolutely not. We will not take a break, and we cannot stop now, and we will continue to pass life-saving laws until we end gun violence in Connecticut. Our lives depend on it. And now it is my pleasure to introduce 2 amazing youth who have been at the Capitol, who have helped get this work done, who have done an amazing job with the Connecticut Against Gun Violence Youth Council. It's my privilege to introduce Bobby Callaghy and Mariam Aziz. Bobby?
Hi everyone, my name is Bobby Callaghy. I'm a senior and student activist from Connecticut and also a member of the CAGV Youth Council. Yesterday, I took part in an activity that has found commonplace in every single school across America, a lockdown drill. I had just come back from the bathroom and I tried to enter my classroom but was met with a locked door, blinds down, and an eerie quietness. Instinctively, I knew immediately that we were in a lockdown. If my response wasn't already concerning enough, when the drill ended, I came back to the classroom and was met with a question from fellow classmates over whether our classroom walls were thick enough to stop a bullet. Why are these the conversations that circulate around school tables now? Why is a space that has historically been a safe place for students now too often become a war zone? If I said I wasn't scared each day I entered the classroom, I would be lying to you. And this isn't just a sentiment I have. Tens of thousands of students and teachers each day are now afraid to go to school or teach English, math, or science. Gun violence has proliferated across this country. Students, teachers, shoppers, and minorities and marginalized communities, and many more are disproportionately affected by this epidemic. In recent news, America has been quoted for our unique crisis of gun violence and mass shootings. While the future may seem murky, people are stepping up to get powerful precedents set for future. As we come here today, it is important to recognize the work the governor, legislators, and groups like CAGV have done to pass strong gun laws and other measures that make Connecticut one of the safest states from gun violence. Am I still scared each day I enter my school? Yes. Will I ever feel safe in school again? Maybe. But I believe this is contingent on whether student leaders from across the state and nationally work with legislators to create meaningful legislation, share their stories, and get the masses to listen. This change is dependent on all of us, so let's keep fighting to make sure this epidemic doesn't continue for future generations to come. Thank you, and welcome another member of the CHEV Youth Council, Maryam Aziz.
My name is Maryam Aziz. I was a former student in Newtown when the Sandy Hook school shooting happened. I was the same age of the students, and I am one of the co-leaders of the Connecticut Against Gun Violence Youth Council. This is a poem I wrote. It's called When I Grow Up. When a stinger stings their last sting, you hear your phone ring. We are bees, seeds of the earth, perfection at birth, pollinators, immortal, flying high, but we are dying off and we don't know why. All we do is study in a sanctuary, our home, and draw a little, maybe even sing and take care of our hive. We have parents and dreams and hopes, and we carry the burden of the world because we have time. We'll relax later. But when is later? There is no more time. Scientists and politicians say they don't know why we are dying when flying. We want to be alive, but we do know why. And the thought of our stingers have always kept us safe, even though we know we must never use them. Use pepper spray. Always keep your phone on. Look both ways when you cross the street. Turn off the lights. This is the door we exit from. This is the room we hide in. This is the desk we barricade the door with. This is the window we wait for rescue from. This is the hand you cover your mouth with. This is the pencil you will use as a weapon. This is the last text you will ever send your mother. I love you, Mom. This is the guard bee who needs to protect the children at play, because who will? We do know why. Inside this hive, we let inside a bee killer. He waited for his resentment to manifest into hatred. He's not a bee. He has no fuzz, no clear motive. He puts on a yellow jacket. He uses his stinger, his vile wish for a cleansing of the weak. He can use his stinger multiple times, an apex predator, a monster, a human. When the stinger stings their last sting, the hive will ring your phone to let you know they'll bring a mini body bag fit just for your child to your door. They'll bring cookies and thoughts and prayers. But since when did such meaningless words ever bring a mother comfort? Did you think your thoughts and prayers will bring that bee back? He was listening to rap music. He was playing video games. He was having a bad day. All these things we will soon say. What about our promise to protect the earth, to protect our kids? But has anyone ever questioned his ability to sting, or the way he boasted about his weapon on social media? I don't know much. I'm just a little bee in a big world. But what I do know is we let him in. We saw him in all of his sinful colors. I can't say I watched him grow. I can't say I knew his motive. But I can say, while growing up, I wanted to become a police officer, because witnessing 20 children my age in my town come home in body bags was traumatizing enough. At 6 years old, I said, when I grow up, I'll become a unicorn. At 8 years old, I said, when I grow up, I will become a police officer. I felt the burden of being the one who had to do something. When I grow up, I will become a doctor. When I grow up, I'll become a firefighter. When I grow up, I'll become a ninja. When I grow up, I'll become a teacher. When I grow up, I'll become a vet. When I grow up, I'll become an actor. When I grow up, I'll become a detective. When I grow up, I'll be a baseball player. When I grow up, I'll be a lighthouse guard. When I grow up, I will become a... I don't know all too much about the world and its complexities. I don't know all too much about our function in society and your policies, but I do know this. Every baby bee in this hive has once uttered these words. When I grow up, when will we let them grow up? And now it is my pleasure to announce the Governor, Ned Lamont.
Miriam, for a tragedy that happened so long ago when you were so young, and to hear that poem with such hurt and heart like it happened just yesterday is just a reminder what gun violence, or the risk of gun violence, or the sound of a shot does to a young person, and what it does to a community. I remember, Steve Stasham, you and I were in Bridgeport some years ago when there were some kids having a Little League baseball game. And there were some shots fired, and Bobby's talking about a lockdown. Well, if you're in the field, a Little League game, all these kids were lying flat and didn't know when they could get up. And I got there a day or so later because they were going to finish that baseball game, just like all these young people have an opportunity to live the dreams that Miriam was talking about so eloquently in her poem. I am so proud that Connecticut continues to be a leader when it comes to getting these illegal guns off the street, dealing with gun violence in a serious way. And thank God for Mothers Against Gun Violence, and Connecticut is against gun violence. And we learned the hard way, and I think we are taking the lead. And as Jeremy said, it is making a difference. And we have one of the lowest gun violence rates in the country. And I get no great comfort from that because we still have so far to go, as you heard from the heart in Miriam's voice. This law that we just passed, barely bipartisan, but we got this passed, and it was strong, and it's enforceable. And if you're not serious about gun safety laws and strict enforcement of gun safety, you're not serious about crime in this state. And then those people say, well, it's not just about getting the illegal guns off the street, it's also about getting those repeat gun offenders off the street. And thanks to Luke Bronin and a number of our mayors, we've got strict rules there. You're a serious gun offender, strict in terms of bail, strict in terms of making sure you get off the street and keeping our communities safe. And they say, well, it's not about the guns, it's about mental health. Well, thanks to Marty Looney and our legislators, we have stepped up in a big way when it comes to mental health, doing everything we can in terms of mental health and counseling support in our schools, strict red flag laws, just doing everything we can to make sure that mental health doesn't end up in violence, and trying to make a difference there. And when people tell me it's not about the guns, it's really about poverty, and it's about lack of hope and lack of opportunity. And there we have a long way to go, but I'd like to think we're making progress and keeping faith with our kids and making sure kids know they have open opportunity in that classroom, making sure we have the after-school programs, making sure we have Project Longevity in other ways. We have mentors and Big Brother and Big Sister, making sure that you get that internship program. Make sure you know that there's a reason to live. And it takes us back to getting those illegal guns off the street. We're just getting started. And I'm really proud of Connecticut and proud of the people standing with me that Connecticut continues to be a leader there, and the type of thing that our senators and congressional delegation take down to Washington, D.C. and say, it works in Connecticut, it should work around the country. Thanks, everybody.
Question of what's next. So, and Steve's here. So, can you guys give us an idea, and the governor as well? What are some of the and Senate President Looney too? What are some of the ideas that you want to still pursue? What more needs to be done?
I mean, I think that, we plan on meeting as we always do every year, and the idea is we need to concentrate on those things that have the greatest effect on reducing gun violence. I can't tell you exactly what we're going to be working on this session. There's still a lot to figure out. But certainly we're going to continue to do the work that we've done over the last, decade, which is let's create solutions that work. Let's get all partners together, and let's figure out what is the greatest way to reduce gun violence, not only in our suburbs, but mostly in our cities as well.
I think the other point on that to note is, passing gun legislation is not a static point in time. And we've seen this time and time again where technology evolves, frankly, quicker than some of our gun laws do. One of the big things that takes effect is an update on the assault weapons ban, because the gun manufacturers have found ways around our existing bans. One of the things we had to do was tighten up our ghost gun prohibition, because, again, folks have found ways around that. So I think a lot of what we're going to be doing is there's a number of provisions of this bill. We're going to look at rollout. We're going to be looking at implementation. And I'm sure we'll be back making tweaks and changes to tighten up even some of the provisions we passed, because unfortunately, those who want to skirt our gun laws, those who want to continue to profit off of the deaths of people on our streets and in our schools, we have to keep up with it.
Yes, one thing is that we are looking at, again, what further can we do? And it was said, I remember back in 2013, we spent a great deal of time looking at what are the particular features of the guns that we want to describe as assault weapons to ban in the legislation. We spent a great deal of time looking at pictures, looking at descriptions, and keeping in mind that there will be efforts to skirt the law by changing a feature some way to try to make it come outside the law. So that's a constant battle of upgrading and vigilance to make sure that people are not successfully evading the law. Another thing I'm interested in, of course, is the fact that we have so many guns coming into Connecticut through straw purchases and other things. I would like to see us further restrict the number of guns that can be purchased per month. We made progress on that this year. I think it's 3 in the bill. I'd like to go even lower than that. I remember a number of years ago, I think it's more than 25 years ago now, our then Majority Leader, George Jepson, proposed a bill looking at the micro-labeling of ammunition to better trace ammunition to the gun that it came from, and I believe that's under consideration now in some states as well, with an effective date somewhat out in the future, so the technology will be available. But that's another thing to look at. So, as the chairman said, I think we need to be constantly vigilant and never just sit back and say, well, that's it, we've checked the box on this issue.
Do you have anything in particular that you want to pursue that you weren't able to get accomplished in the last legislative session?
I think we have a lot to digest, but I just follow up on what Steve and Marty says. The technology is evolving so fast. It's so easy to turn that pistol into a machine gun now. And we got to make sure we have laws in place to keep up with the changing technology, keep up with the criminals, keep up with those that are trying to do us harm. And if I have one big priority, it's working more on a regional basis. Paul, I was just with Chris Sununu the other day. He's the governor of New Hampshire. And we can only do so much within our small state and our borders. I want to see a national effort here, and I'm doing everything I can along with my regional governors as well.
Can I give you a brief statement that I just received and get you to respond to it? Holly Sullivan says the governor and his administration focused their resources during legislative session on new laws which will have massive impacts on background-checked responsible gun owners in this state. However, the new laws will do little to curb the increased crime committed by prohibited people already in unlawful possession of firearms. Again, the governor has shown that his priority is gun control, not managing the genuine crimes that are impacting the residents of Connecticut.
I think she's dead wrong, and I don't think CCDL is very serious about taking care of keeping our streets safe and getting those illegal guns off the street. You know, open carry is about saying it's illegal to carry those guns on the street. It's our opportunity to see whether those ghost guns, which are unmarked and meant to kill, we can get them off the street. I'm not doing anything about lawful gun owners, but I'm trying to be very strict, get those illegal guns off the street, and those that are more likely to repeat a crime like that, get them off the street as well.
Were you referring to the Glock switch? And I wanted to ask you too, because that's an issue in your city. So, when you're talking about taking a device that makes handguns rapid fire, were you talking about the Glock switch?
Magazines, go ahead, Luke.
Governor Sakay, just want to add one thing in response to CCDL. CCDL and others have been saying for a long time that they think we need to be more serious about people who are illegally using weapons to commit crimes. Well, this is a bill that does that. And this was done with the governor's leadership, with Democratic leadership, and it wasn't done with a lot of help from CCDL. It was done with the active participation of law enforcement and state's attorneys and people who are on the ground working to keep communities safe. So I think it's really important that that we say loud and clear, this is a bill that says very clearly, if you're responsible for repeatedly committing acts of violence in a community, then you need to be held accountable. And if CCDL was serious about safety, they would have been up there advocating for it alongside us. With respect to the point about Glock switches, I think that's exactly right. We're seeing a proliferation of Glock switches. In Hartford, we've recovered about 50 of them this year. And as the governor said, they convert a semi-automatic pistol into a fully automatic weapon. And you combine a Glock switch with an extended magazine, you very quickly convert a typical semi-automatic pistol into a machine gun, and a machine gun with a lot of rounds that can be fired very quickly. And again, the important point is here, we're not looking at distant threats on the horizon. We're not coming up with theoretical problems that need to be fixed. These are problems that every community is facing on a weekly basis, on a daily basis around this country and around Connecticut. These are real problems that required these fixes.
Here over the weekend. In the past, these events have gone on. So what are your thoughts when you see big numbers of people organizing against these laws that you say help improve the safety of the state?
You have the right to peacefully protest, and don't invite violence. Be careful.
Well, part of this is it's the last day of the before the law changes and open carry is sort of banned from that point on. Do you have any concern that it is inciting?
I hope not, but as Luke said, we're trying to get the illegal guns off the street, and those that are threatening to do violence, carrying illegal guns. We're trying to enforce that. I don't know why they are so outspoken about our efforts to get illegal guns off the street.
You know, I think the other thing to note is CCDL does not speak for all gun owners. There are a number of legal, lawful gun owners in this state who have absolutely no issue with provisions of this bill. I've gotten outreach from a number of my constituents who know sort of my position on a number of these laws, who are gun owners, who are friends, who are active huntsmen, who say these restrictions in this bill do not place any onus on them. You know, if you're out hunting deer on a Saturday morning, this bill is not going to make it any more onus on you. That is still absolutely lawful activity. If that's what you like to do for recreation, so be it. I had one gun owner in my district reach out after I sent out an e-blast sort of summarizing the bill and said, why would anybody need to purchase 3 guns a month? Why isn't it 1? To Senator Looney's point. I mean, that was a legislative compromise we made at 3 in this bill, frankly, but there are a number of gun owners who have reached out and said, you know what, just fine. So let's remember, CCDL doesn't speak for all of them.
Will you be pursuing the issues through your committee? No,
So-
I'm asking you if you're going to be
I believe that it's already covered under existing law. Several years ago, we introduced a bill that passed that was designed to ban bump stocks as well as trigger switches and other devices that increase the rate of fire of guns. And We looked at this issue this past session, and we believe that the existing bill also covers these Glock switches as well as gun sears and other things that are used to turn semi-automatic weapons into fully automatic machine guns. So we believe that the current law, I think that's a question that the state's attorney would be better able to answer, but that's certainly something that I think we can discuss.
Yeah, and back to my point earlier about how the technology continues to evolve, and we need to continue to tweak our laws. So, I mean, we believe it's already covered, but to the extent it's not, then yeah, absolutely, we should clean up that loophole.
One additional thing, which is that the law that was passed in the definition of a serious firearm offense includes the possession of a weapon that's been altered to make it illegal under these other provisions. So the law that was passed adds provisions to address that problem.
Well, you won't be mayor, but you guys were the mayors that were proposing that actually have proposed to go farther than what the legislation passed. So
the legislation that passed was really significant. The legislation that passed will make a difference in this community and communities across the state. And the point here is that included among the serious firearm offenses that lead to greater accountability is the possession of a modified weapon, including with a Glock switch.
I just wanted to make sure, has there been discussion among the mayors about coming back and trying to accomplish more of what they proposed last year?
No, there's not been any formal meetings right now. Again, I mean, that's a coalition that came together and worked in partnership with a lot of folks who are here and a lot of folks who are not here who are a part of that process. But I think that coalition, every member of that coalition would say that we're grateful for the partnership and proud that we were able to make some really significant progress this past session.
Thanks,